Now is the time to have our next playoff on security, sustainability, and scalability defense discussion. This playoff gathers defense and aerospace leaders to exchange ideas on innovation, security systems, and of course, the sustainable defense solutions that are shaping a new era and of course, a new future of global preparedness. Can we have the video rolling, please?
Europe is on a warpath. Lines redrawn. Alliances tested.
And the world's strongest military power
shifts its gaze.
Europe can't wait for help.
Self-reliance is no longer strategy.
It's survival.
Germany must lead.
In building the systems that protect.
And the industries that sustain.
Enter the disruptors.
Faster, smarter, scalable. This is not just defense manufacturing.
It's technology transfer at speed.
India, cost advantage, production muscle, a workforce trained for precision.
Germany, engineering dominance, R&D depth, combat-proven design.
Together, they can build what others wait to buy.
The new arsenal is not about having more.
It's about building smarter.
The playoff begins.
Well, while knowing what all is happening around us and in fact across the globe, it is even more important to discuss this further with some more experts joining us. I would again like to thank Mr. Lal for enlightening us about the topic before we have the experts joining us here for the panel. For now, a thought-provoking session. I would like to invite Mr. Karl-Heinz Grossman, Head of International Airbus Defense and Space, Dr. Alexander Shillong, MD Cybersecurity Schwarz Digits, Mr. Rajinder Singh Bhatia, President Society of Indian Defense Manufacturers and Chairman of Kalyani Strategic System Limited, Mr. Chandrasekhar HG, Founder and MD Sasmos HET Technologies, Mr. Ankit Mehta, Co-Founder and CEO IdeaForge Technology, Captain Michael Gase, Commander, Regional Territorial Command, Baden-Württemberg on stage. Please join me by welcoming all of them here on stage. And with that, I hand over the mic to my colleague Karthik Malhotra, who will take the chat forward. Karthik, the session is yours.
Thank you so much, Sakshi. Gentlemen, good evening. May I request you to please take your seats? I think we are still, okay, we are good. I think the panel is complete. Good evening, gentlemen. And yeah, after that very, very enlightening session by Dr. Lal, you know, the benchmark for our discussion has really been taken. The bar is really up. So I hope we can collectively do justice to it. And with one man in uniform and one man who once donned one, I have no doubt that we will live up to the expectations of all our audience here. So, to begin with, let me start with the man in uniform, Captain Gase. Thank you so much for joining us here. I think all of us must agree on one fact, that we owe everything to men in uniform who protect us, who guard us, and at some level, for those who are... And for those of you who are not donning the uniform, but contributing to the apparatus, the ingredients, the supply chain that goes into protecting the men and women in uniform, I think it is our duty to make sure that what we build for them is robust, is scalable, and unbeatable. So with that, Captain Gase, let me begin first by asking you, and I think our session is going to be a little bit of politics, a little bit of economics, and definitely a lot of defense. So let's first get the elephant out of the room, and the elephant really is NATO. And the redefinition of NATO, Donald Trump being Donald Trump, doing a Donald Trump on us, saying that, hey, Europe, guess what? You've got to up your defense budgets. You've got to scale it up to 5% of GDP. Germany has done that, 3.5% if I remember correctly, and saying that only once you do that, do I have your back. So at a time like this, Captain Gase, what are armed forces across Europe, especially in Germany, thinking about scaling up their defense manufacturing and ensuring that the architecture of NATO stays intact and the support that Europe at some level depends on US on continues to stay?
Yeah, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and thanks for that wonderful question, because it opens a lot of great variety of answers going into politics, diplomacy, and of course military aspects. Of course, I'm not in a position to talk about U.S. interior politics and the president, etc., etc. We are looking the news every day, and we follow very closely what's going on in the United States. But on the other hand, as a German officer, and I can fully understand that the United States of America have, of course, other theaters on which they have to look on, and they look to the Far East, they look to China, they look to the Pacific Ocean theater, and I can fully understand that the strategic interest or the center of strategy is for the United States is a bit shifting from Europe to the Far East. On the other hand, as for the time being, we need the sustainment, the supply, and the logistics and the capabilities of the U.S. forces. No doubt about that, because after 30 years of fully peacetime in Europe, we reduced our own forces, and without the backup of the United States, we are not able to create any kind of deterrence whatsoever. So just the last sentence on that, the shift of the United States to other regions or theaters is fully understandable, but as of now, I do not see any indications that they will let us standing alone in the rain tomorrow morning or so. They are still there, and we are still in a very close NATO liaison. And of course, the current enemy is here in Europe, is on the east.
Right in your neighborhood, sir. In fact, right next door. And who would have thought that despite this this protection that is offered by the US, there would be drone sighting in Poland, and oh my God, not just Poland. Munich airport had drone sightings twice in 24 hours. Now that's a long distance away from the neighbor that we are talking about. But Rajendra Singh Bhatia, I want to stay on that subject for a little bit. And it seems, what we've seen at least, the Russia-Ukraine war, what we've seen Israel and Hamas being at war, and even the recent skirmish between India and Pakistan, I think one thing is fairly clear, that the nature of warfare is changing. And in that changing nature of warfare, are we across the world, and especially us in India, investing in the right technologies? I mean, we are phasing out the MiG-21s that have served us beautifully for about 70 odd years. We are now inducting the HAL, and now we are also talking about AMCA. But I think we will have to at some point agree that the nature of warfare is shifting, and perhaps drones, perhaps space as well as cyber security could become the next obvious solution.
I think your question is very relevant, and in fact, while he was talking about it, the geostrategic scenario and the play which is happening for the last few years does indicate that nobody is going to back or save your back when you are in trouble. We learned this lesson many years ago. Many other people are now understanding that you have to be technologically advanced and, of course, militarily reasonably self-sufficient. When we are talking about Make in India, it's not meant to be exclusive, it is meant to be inclusive. So coming back to the question which you are saying, are we ready?
The question is, are we investing in the right technologies?
Yes,
Readiness is ever evolving, sir.
Coming to that. So there was a very interesting book which said that there are three things. Technology is very difficult to predict. In fact, it is like, you cannot predict the way, the shape it will take. So there was general directions or mega trends which could be seen. Now, three mega trends were quite evident in technology. The first one was that the future warfare will not be similar to what was fought before. The second was that the future warfare will touch every facet of life of every individual. And third was that the technology will move from civilian domain to the military domain. Hitherto it was moving in other
directions. From military
direction.
to civilian, yes.
So I want to just add on to that. So if it is going to move from civilian domain to military domain, what you need is what we were talking about in the morning about startup culture. you need millions of startups to come which can start developing technology in the domains which can address the needs of the future. And this also is a point which, if we take a look, can be a great starting point between India and Germany.
All right, a great starting point between India and Germany. And guess what? You're talking about a startup, and we have one sitting right amidst you, Ankit Mehta. Thank you so much for your time. It was great meeting you in Berlin at the curtain raiser of the News9 Global Summit. But here we are again. And talk to us. There was a beautiful presentation that you'd made on the drone technologies and especially the military uses of those. Talk to us about the India-Germany connect when it comes to your drones and perhaps technology which becomes universal.
No, it's thank you so much. I think it's a pleasure to be here on this panel. In terms of drones, I think as I was sharing at the event as well, we've been doing this for the last 21 years. So we've essentially started building this technology, predicting what's going to come next, way before it actually became a thing. But
so talk to us about your technology. For the sake of the viewers here, what are the drones that you're making? What is the scale at which you're operating? And what is the kind of damage that it can inflict if the need arises?
So I think when we started, we started to try and counter insurgency and counter-terrorism. We started after what happened in 26/11 in Mumbai in 2008. And as early as that, we realized that we need to give eyes to our soldiers, and we need to give them eyes that can stay hidden, but observe what is happening on the other side so that there are no other collateral damages or collateral effects. And I think for many years, almost a decade and a half, we have focused on that domain. The needs of that domain are evolving. The needs of that domain, as was visible and obvious in Op Sindoor as well, is to make sure that every asset that you're building is resilient. It can counter what the adversary will do to prevent you from doing its job. And I think that's a very important vector that the entire tech stack on the drone space is evolving towards. Dr. Lal spoke about that very, very categorically, and I think without that, there is no future for this technology. It's very critical in defense at least. And in terms of assets we are building now, from building eyes that could observe at the last mile for the soldiers on field, we are now building assets that can be of a slightly more strategic nature when it comes to looking at high altitude logistics. We are building assets of that class, and we are also building assets that can carry payloads that can be used for precision delivery if required.
All right, so perhaps that is the future that you are writing, and that is the future that you would be flying into the markets very soon. Mr. Shalong, let me get you into this conversation. We've talked about drones as one potential new age tool of warfare, and the other one is cyber threats, cyber wars. One would have imagined that this is all works of sci-fi and may or may not actually ever come true, but here we are. There have been cyber attacks, there have been pager explosions, there have been a lot of technologies which are used which rest in the domain of communication and radio frequencies. At short digits, talk to us about some of the solutions that you would be working which could enable the defense sector to be more defensive of cybersecurity and cyber wars.
Well, first of all, thank you for inviting Schwartz Digits and myself to the stage here. I think if you still think this is a matter of sci-fi, you haven't really watched the news, probably also your channel where you reported on cyber attacks.
Exactly. So it was once assumed it's going to be sci-fi, but it's present and clear and dangerous.
And the important thing is everybody can be a target, individuals or organizations. Obviously, we as the largest retailer in Europe, we see this every day, and we see this with our peers. And we see this when we are in other gatherings. I mean, right now in Nuremberg, you have the second largest IT security fair in the world, ITSA. And for 3 days, basically, all the professionals got together and the respective parties from the military and government sectors, not just from Germany. And basically, it was on everybody's mind that, the attacks have become more aggressive. They are becoming more sophisticated. Attackers are usually always a step ahead. And as a retailer for many, many years, we just served our own operations in 32 countries, which includes Europe and the Eastern Seaboard in the US. And we realized a while ago, essentially a little bit like India, except, for example, India for years, obviously, bought most of its weaponry from Russia, right? And now you're really diversifying and you become more independent. And this is, I think, very
And not just diversifying internationally, you're also diversifying internally.
Correct.
Atmanirbhar Bharat, Make in India, defense story is something that India is really going ahead and capitalizing on.
Correct, that's what you do. And essentially, we're following down the same path, right? We said sovereignty is a key thing. We're not talking autarky, but we're talking sovereignty. And we need to be able also as an organization, when it comes to digitalization, to no longer be fully dependent on the players from the US. Obviously, we believe in the transatlantic partnership, but it's very important to do certain things yourself. And this is why we started investing in our own sovereign cloud, which is no longer, obviously it works at our scale, it probably works for others. And we're even working with people in the defense sector because cloud technology, cybersecurity is relevant. We invested in cybersecurity, in prevention techniques with a company called StackIt, Workspace, and a couple of other things. And this is what we do, but we also generally engage in conversations with multiple stakeholders, how we can improve the overall defensiveness of society and our peers, because ultimately, you know, a quarter of the population of Europe shops in our stores at Lidl and Kaufland every day. If we close them tomorrow, there is nobody to replace them, right? So we really are on a mission to support the people in Europe and a little bit in the US. And we need to make sure we are safe and our supply chain is safe. And this, of course, matters for us, for Europeans, for Indians, for everyone.
And I would suggest don't restrict yourself only to Europe and US. Look at Asia and definitely look at India to set up a market for yourself as well. And of course, make some investments, by the way. Mr. Chandrasekhar, there's something very interesting that you and I were talking about last evening, and that pretty much brings us to the pivot from what we heard from Mr. Shillong. And that's the fact that while we're talking about Atmanirbhar Bharat, gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, Atmanirbhar means self-reliance. So while we're talking about a self-reliant India when it comes to defense manufacturing, perhaps going back to the conversation that I started with Captain Geets, there's also a need right now for Europe to be self-reliant and for Europe to reduce its dependence on this protection layer which has been offered. And that pretty much to me seems like an opportunity for collaboration between India and Europe, and of course Germany being the largest economy in Europe, for collaboration to ensure that whatever they need to do to scale up their budgets and to have their own Atmanirbhar European Union when it comes to defense, to actually have more manufacturing move towards India. So how do you think that equation is going to play out?
It's actually, first of all, thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. And then definitely, yes, I think from last 8 years, if you really see India started really getting into the manufacturing outputs, even though the intents were there about in the defense sector by about 20 years back. But the Make in India and Atmanirbhar Bharat has created a lot of capabilities in the whole last 8 to 10 years of actually our own journey.
Right.
And then today, when you really look at European as a market, definitely yes, there are a lot of investments are happening and going to happen for defense sector. Scalability is a major requirement in any of the such kind of a high-speed manufacturing capability. India being a capable, very technical-oriented skill set, we were able to build a very good level of support system for the entire the European base to an extent. In terms of, if you look at it, as an organization, we already work for France, UK, and then also for Germany. So Germany, right now, if you really look at it, there is a great opportunity, if you really look at from the Indian perspective, to find answers for their scalability with a lot of reliability as a production and quality responsibilities.
Right, so here we are in Germany, and let's hope that those collaborations bear some more fruit. But you also mentioned France, which is a market that you work in. So let's move to a French company and invite Mr. Grossman here to share his views. We are talking about Make in India. We are talking about Atmanirbhar Bharat, and here we have Boeing Defense and Space already manufacturing in India. So Mr. Grossman, take us through your observations on how you have found India as a factory of the world which can scale up your production, and what more needs to be done? Talk to us from the French example.
First of all, thank you for having me. Maybe one remark, we don't consider ourselves as a French or a German company.
A multinational company.
We're a European company with roots in Germany, in France, in Spain and UK. And that doesn't make our life always easy.
I can imagine.
What I also wanted to say that France enjoys excellent relationships with India at the political level, and that has helped in many areas to do business, also having trustful relationships in defense. And my wish as a German, of course, would be that from a political point of view, there's continuation of the path that has been starting with the policy on Indo-Pacific, regular exchange between the governments. For our business, we need to have trustful relationships and long-lasting relationships, because any investment that is made, I think, may be only reimbursed in many, many years. But coming back to your second point, and at least in the civilian market for airplanes, India is really important for Airbus. We source around almost €1 billion of parts every year from India. We have some key suppliers, and if you came on a plane, the chance is high that you have been on an Airbus plane, and I can guarantee you there are parts made in India, and they're exclusively made in India, and they are done so well that we are going single source. So that's, we have examples where this works very well. Also, maybe another figure for the coming years, for the next 20 years, Airbus will deliver every week 1 aircraft to India. So that shows how big the market is, but it's also our responsibility then to give back, to develop supply chains. We have about 4,000 engineers in India who work in IT, in engineering development, and without India, we cannot do what we do today. So it shows it's cumbersome at times, it takes time to develop, but it is worthwhile pursuing, and sometimes you need to fight. I think the regulations do not always help. Bureaucracies are tough, and simplification would really be welcome in any respect. Be it export licenses here in Germany or being offset regulations in India, it's a real uphill battle. At the moment, we have just started a helicopter final assembly line, and we are also doing the C295 aircraft in India with Tata Advanced Systems. So Airbus holds the contract, but it's delivered through Tata, and it's entirely made in India. And one last point of cooperation I wanted to make, because there was a lot of discussion about drones, and generally we talk a lot about smaller drones. We are developing one drone for Europe, which is called Eurodrone, and there were some pictures. It is more the size of a small aircraft, around 12 tons. And I think there are capabilities which are required in Europe and which are required in India if you want to survey large areas of maritime areas. And that's where we try to work with India, and at least we could convince India to join the program as an observer, with the option to later on join this program, bring their know-how to the program, and also tailor the product for the needs of India.
Right. Mr. Bhatia, I want to actually pick up the thread from there and bring this question over to you. That at one point, of course, we are talking about collaboration, we are talking about components which are manufactured in India, we are talking about a large consumer market, and that reflects in the aircraft order book that we just heard about. But at some point, it's also a question of what are the kind of investments that India must make in actually making its own defense absolutely robust. I mean, we'll come to the MROs perhaps subsequently if time permits, because that's again something that Airbus will find relevance in, and I think India needs MROs to come when it comes to civilian aircraft. But our own aircraft, our own engine manufacturing, for example, because I think the rollout of the HAL Tejas has been the light combat aircraft, has been delayed for years because there is no technology transfer, and we are dependent on GE engines that come from the United States of America. So how does India build its own absolute end-to-end self-reliance when it comes to even engines, not just components?
So this is the point where we all need to deliberate. There are gaps in technology, but before we come to the gaps, let's see what we have achieved in last decade. Exports have gone 13 times in last 7 years. Defense production has doubled in last 5 years, and the target is to double it further in the next 3 years. But you are very right on some significant programs, and the technologies are still not there. In fact, that is one area we all hear about aero engines, but similar situation exists in marine systems, where there's a very strong company sitting in Germany, MTU, which has a market share, and where we could be working together to develop those I would say high-powered gas turbine engines for the marine platforms. Now coming back to the investments, all this revolves around the market size, the ability of people to tap that market, and then investments follow suit.
So should it be the government or should it be the private sector that makes those investments? Because I'm pretty sure, sir, talent is not a problem in India. There are problems that we're solving for the world, and engine doesn't seem like rocket science. It's still aviation.
Well, so I will not totally endorse that. Engine is a rocket science and little more.
All right, given
there are only 4 manufacturers of repute in the world, and India should have the 5th one. Probably if we can do the collaboration right. But coming back to the investment, it has to be both sides. It cannot be private investments alone. It cannot be government investments alone. You've seen the example of AMCA, where government has earmarked nearly $2 billion, close to $2 billion for development by private industry.
Is that enough, sir? $2 billion?
So that's for 5 prototypes. Then they're promising hundreds of them if you have developed it right into the... nothing is enough. If you take at the national level, our R&D spends are still very, very low. It's 0.6% of GDP. We need to spend much more. If you take a look at defense budget percentage of R&D, it's still only about 13%. All developed nations are at 25%. So there is always scope to spend more. But issue is, India actually can deliver much more with lesser money in R&D because we are famous for frugal engineering. So key point here would be again collaboration, and he talked about it. In fact, we have interacted with him. We did set up, when I was in LNTA, a joint venture with the Airbus. But the key point here is, how do we collaborate in the current strategic environment?
All right.
I think India and Germany need each other, and that's the place where we need to start co-designing, co-developing, and then co-manufacturing, maybe for the world.
All right. I want to also talk about rocket science for just a bit, because it seems that India's record at space programs has far exceeded expectations of the world. No surprise to us Indians, we knew we could get there. But I think we haven't really achieved the same level of feat when it comes to other military equipment. Of course, you also represent Bharat Forge, so Bharat Forge is one of the key examples of how India is collaborating with German companies and really making for the German defense sector as well. But Captain Keys, again to the point of technology transfer. Now, what we learn in India is that the more you share, the more you get. But it seems that that philosophy doesn't really seem to work for those who hold patents for their technologies. Is there time to actually get German companies to open up their secret boxes, their vaults, their Pandora's boxes perhaps, and share some of those secrets for us to be able to scale up, not just for ourselves, but also for Europe?
Well, also a very good question. I think there are 2 trains running on different lanes or tracks at different speed. What we now have is the 4th year of war in Europe, just some 600 kilometers east of us, where we see kind of a classic war. There are tanks, rockets are flying, bombs been dropped, killing soldiers and of course killing civil people. Drones, cyber and especially drones are a bit bringing modern aspects on military tactics, but for the next, I would say 5, 10, 15 years or so, this will be the type of war, of classic war, that we have to prepare for. The other train is running with new technologies, and this also has to be developed, and someone has to pay for it. And Germany is luckily now in a good position, depending on money and spending, so the resources are there in Germany. But it's hard today. It's hard to assess where to put the priority on. What we need now are tanks, aircrafts, new frigates, etc., PP, and ammunition. Classic ammunition, artillery grenades, and this is definitely not the rocket science, but we and all the other European armed forces are very weak of that. and time is running out for Europe. We think that by 2029, 2030, Russia could be in a position to really threaten Western Europe. And so in a couple of years, we have to have all the equipment to stand up and put on truly a resilience and a deterrence that will keep Russia back off. And so in the background, we have to go on the other issues and topics, but to coordinate the speed of these two trains, I think this is the homework, the brilliant homework for the political level or for everyone who is outside the military then.
All right, so of course the complexities, the geoeconomics, the geopolitics and the lack of stability in the region is obviously getting Europe to rethink, but I think India is continuing to think in the right direction, and the kind of investments and the kind of ideas, the innovations that we are seeing in drone technologies is something that India is definitely going to hopefully scale up in coming times. So Ankit, since you're here, since you've been in touch with your German counterparts and with the industry here, what are some of the lessons that India should learn from Germany when it comes to at least innovation, technology, and what are the lessons that you feel Germany could learn from India when it comes to perhaps STEM education?
I think in terms of what we can learn from Germany, it is very clear to me that Germany has a very old history of building high performance, reliable systems. And I think that's an area that we should imbibe, and we should accelerate our learning in that direction as soon as possible. And of course, what we can learn from India is a massive transformation that has happened on the digital side. And the amount of digital economy that India has created over the last at least 4 years is I think, mind-numbing in terms of its pace. And I think the work that is happening on intelligence, AI, and the panel we had a short while back regarding the global capability centers and the development work happening there.
Yeah.
I think that's an area that can be, so autonomy is a big lesson that we can drive very aggressively in India given our capability there. I think overall, my belief is that in terms of exchange between the two countries, we are in a environment and a time where anything that is inevitable is getting accelerated at an unprecedented pace. And we have two challenges because of which it slows down in large organizations like the defense forces is the burden of training. It takes a lot of effort to change gears, to change the training that the forces have imbibed in over many years. And I think autonomy is the only way to make that adoption happen fast. If it can happen without involving people who are trained in certain tactics, and that change of training will take some time to become central to the entire force.
Right.
Maybe autonomy is a big, big way that we will have to drive. And that pace of adoption and acceleration there has to go up by a big, big notch. I think we've all ignored that for a very long time, especially in India. I think it is imperative for us to adopt that from wherever we can very fast.
So I think that's the transformation, and that's the choices that you make that Dr. Vivek Lal was talking about before our session. So I think it's pretty clear the choices that India has to make. But what are the choices, Mr. Grossman, that Airbus has to make, especially now, just deviating a little bit from the defense sector, about having MROs set up in India, maintenance, repair and overhaul facilities? I think there's a dying need for India to have MROs so that the fleet up in the air continues to stay in the air and not grounded.
Well, that's true. If you have a big fleet, and that's definitely the case in the commercial world, then you will have to have MRO right at the location. And I think we are working with our suppliers to establish where this is needed. We also pay a lot of attention to training facilities, and we just recently opened another one in India, so crews can be trained and operate the aircraft. But coming back to the real challenge, it's really in defense, for me, it is to satisfy the short-term need where we can help as articulated by Captain Giss.
Yeah.
And then, of course, don't turn the eye of the longer-term investments that are needed. NATO has released capability planning. They have done a gap analysis. There is data available in the ministries of defense in Europe and in the NATO member states. And there are topics like persistent surveillance from space. There is topics like air defense, which still needs to be improved. And in those areas require investment and are also opportunities for collaboration. And there are also opportunities to collaborate with India because India has the same issues or will have the same topics to resolve in a couple of years.
Right. Mr. Chandrasekhar, the second last word to you before I come to Mr. Shelong to wind up this session. So the final word from you on this panel, at least in the era that we are living in, and India-EU FTA on the horizon, India signed multiple others. In fact, Keir Starmer was in India, continues to be in India, if I'm not mistaken, as we speak. But the fact of the matter is that there's got to be a greater, a deeper sense of engagement when it comes to defense solutions, especially the ones you offer, and the global market out there. So, in the advent of this new interconnected world that we are living in, what is your one expectation from Germany, from Europe, when it comes to SASMOS AGT?
See, if you really look at Europe and the Germany's in specific, it has got a lot of things that they can really leverage from the Indian ecosystem right now. It is already on and getting developed from the manufacturing and engineering perspective. So typically, I think right now the collaboration is supposed to be not looking at the borderlines. It is actually going beyond the borderlines, both the sides.
All right.
So what I really see is, in fact, actually as a SASMOS, we did a couple of things as a step, which is really leverage. Because we put up certain people in Germany for engineering in front who are really experienced and then backed it up with respect to a complete aircraft new design capabilities and some of the subsystems.
Okay.
So that is really working very well, and they're all sitting in Munich and then also in Bangalore, and then really putting up together a solution within 18 months for the whole system. And then such kind of actually, I think, collaborative efforts and the trust that can be established with an engineering background. And then this particular background is not only for engineering, it is also actually, I think, manufacturing requirements can be met from the day one when you are engineering it from the scalability perspective. So such kind of collaborative efforts in the beginning of design, and then also on the technology transfers, I think it should be more trustworthy, the technology transfers that should happen from Germany, wherever they are, in terms of believing us. Because in my view, I think if the technology can be well protected for them, it's a great opportunity for us as Indians to really scale up our manufacturing and capabilities. The requirement is, are you really able to take care of the technology intentions of the who are really created that, like German, for example. So I think that is where I see FDA should be more pronounced in terms of actually, I think...
one of the clauses should be technology transfer.
Yes, technology transfer.
Could that potentially be a stumbling block?
Possibly, yes, as a mindset right now. I would request that actually, I think that will be a mind shift, which really creates plenty of opportunities for both the countries. And also, actually, I think these technology transfers can really create a speed in Indian defense requirements also. And which, if as long as it is very well done transparently and then very collaboratively and candidly. I think that's what I really see as an opportunity to a small opening can really, with a controlled way, can create a huge scalability and sustainability from manufacturing and then speed in which it can be incorporated into the systems.
All right, sir. Final word to you, as I promised, Mr. Shelong, because there's something I wanted to spend more time on. Perhaps we could catch up over dinner, and I've got just about a minute or so left for you to answer that. Artificial intelligence in the world of cyber warfare, cyber security, a threat or an opportunity?
How much time are you only?
About a minute.
I thought we have like 4 hours.
That's in the evening.
Okay, no, it's both, right? It's very helpful for the defenders, and it's already finding its way into the various solutions that are out there. But of course, AI is another tool in the tool set of the attackers to facilitate certain types of activities.
Is it serving as a solution for you, or is it serving as a problem because hackers are using it perhaps better than you?
Again, the answer is both sides of the world, so I cannot give no black or white answer. It's in the gray zone. That's the way it is.
All right, let's erase the gray and try and find a black or white answer, maybe over dinner tonight. But gentlemen, with that, we have run out of time. Thank you so much for your time this evening, and it was absolutely wonderful listening to all your views here. And thank you so much. Once again, we will, of course, meet for dinner at the News Schloss, ladies and gentlemen, this evening, 8 o'clock onwards at the Newcastle in Stuttgart. Gentlemen, thank you so much.
And please be with me here on stage, sir. I would request you all to kindly stay here for a couple of more minutes as I now invite our Sridharan and also Ruben here on stage for shawl felicitation.
Now